early morning hours of March 4th, 2022, the house was quiet. Corey Richens fell asleep in her young son's room, like many parents do. At some point in the night, she gets up and walks back down the hallway to her bedroom.
Right from the start, this feels like any ordinary night. Something every parent watching can relate to. And that's what makes what's coming next so unsettling. Because tragedy doesn't announce itself.
She slips back into bed beside her husband. She settles in next to him. She reaches over, and he feels cold. Eric Richens, the father of her children, the man that she has built a life with. Something feels wrong. She pulls the blanket up around him, but something still isn't right. He feels heavy. She turns on the light, and when she looks at her husband, really looks at him.
This is the emotional core of the case, but here's the twist. In court, moments like this aren't just about grief, they're scrutinized. Every reaction, every second, becomes potential evidence. The question is, should it?
She realizes something is terribly wrong. And in that instant, in that bedroom, in the quiet early of the morning, Corey Richens' world collapsed. Reasonable doubt. It's not just a slogan, it's not just a suggestion, it's a constitutional shield that protects the innocent.
This right here is the backbone of the entire trial. Beyond a reasonable doubt isn't just legal jargon. It's the difference between freedom and life behind bars. So ask yourself, how much uncertainty is too much?
And prevents the state from punishing without truth. And it is the state that has that high burden, the highest burden under the law, to prove each and every single element of each and every charged offense beyond a reasonable doubt. The state stood up on day one and they told you they were going to prove that Corey Richens had the means, the motive, and the opportunity to kill Eric Richens.
This is a classic defense strategy. Don't prove innocence. Just introduce enough alternative explanations to plant doubt. But here's the real question for you watching. Do these alternatives feel realistic or convenient?
And we're going to talk about each of these, but first, I want to talk a little more about reasonable doubt. I've told juries for a long time that one way to understand reasonable doubt is, are there other reasonable explanations as to what happened? As you look at the evidence, if there are other reasonable explanations, this is reasonable doubt. And you have to find Corey not guilty. I put to you that every fact that the state has put forth to say that Ms. Richens is guilty has another reasonable explanation.
And here's where the narrative splits in two. The same story can sound like a loving mother's routine or a carefully constructed alibi. Which version are you leaning toward right now?
Let's go back to March 3rd, 2022. From everything we've heard during this trial, Corey and Eric were happy that night. They were celebrating. Corey was just about to close on the Midway mansion. Rightly or wrongly, she believed that this was going to be the deal that put her over the top. The deal that had made everything she'd done with her business, the good, the bad, and the ugly, all worth it. The night of March 3rd, they have a celebratory drink, they go to bed, and then Corey hears one of her sons cry out. And like parents all over the world do, she goes in to lie down on the floor of her son's room. An alibi or the truth? She wasn't inconsistent when she told this story. She told everyone, I was lying in Ash's room, I was lying down with him. What does reason tell you? What does experience tell you? When she wakes up, she goes back to her room. Eric appears to be asleep. We don't know for sure what happens over the next 15 minutes or so.
Notice how the defense fills in the gaps with everyday behavior. Bathroom, phone, water. It sounds normal, almost too normal. But in a courtroom, normal can either humanize someone or mask something deeper? What do you think is happening here?
The state asks you to leap to conclusions about what she was doing during that time. Yet they have not shown you any evidence of this. They just tell you to believe it. But what does reason tell you? She gets up. She goes to the bathroom. She picks up her phone. We all pick up our phone all the time. Been away from it for an hour or two. She goes to the bathroom. Maybe she walks to the kitchen. Maybe she gets a drink of water. Maybe she lets out the dog. And then she goes back to her bedroom, phone probably in hand, gets into the bed next to her husband, again, realizes he's cold, pulls up the blanket, realizes something's wrong, and turns on the light. It probably takes a moment or two for her brain to register what she's seen. And then she makes that call that nobody ever wants to make. She calls 911. A big part of this state's case is that Ms. Richens is not grieving properly. You heard this from a couple of different witnesses, 2 or 3. What does that mean? I was unexpectedly widowed when I was not much older than Corey, and I had 2 little boys. How do you judge someone in that moment? If I've learned one thing during this trial, I've learned I didn't grieve right. I didn't know that, but it's clear now that I didn't. They want you to look at a woman in the worst moment of her life and to judge her grief. There is no wrong way to grieve. They're asking you to judge how she is acting at that moment and then use that moment of evidence of guilt. In the opening, we pointed out, go ahead and put it on that the state looks at facts one way and sees a witch. But if you look at those facts another way, you see a widow. Here's an example. Hands over her face, curled up. A witch, hiding because she's done something wrong, or a widow, hiding and blocking out what has just happened to her, what has just happened to her children, what has just happened to her family and to her life. Look familiar? Portrayals of women grieving in art. Portrayals of women in grief. The state tells you during evidence that, she didn't immediately talk to Gene Richens when he came to the house because she felt so guilty she couldn't talk to him. Or was it because she didn't want to tell a father his son had died? She didn't tell the boys when she should have. It was weird. She didn't go talk to them. They were in the playroom. Again, because she felt guilty, or because she was dreading the most difficult conversation, the conversation no mother ever wants to have with her young sons. Their father is dead. The father that everyone agrees was a wonderful father is gone, and she has to tell those little boys, you're never going to see him again. Believe me, that conversation may be the worst moment in a mother's life. How can a woman be judged on how she handles that moment?